Hello and welcome to, I have to say, a spring-like episode of Sports Wrap. I am one of the hosts, Mike Wigdor, and as you can see that my friend and co-host, Big Frank Walsh is not here today, but we do have a very capable and a very good friend of the show and very knowledgeable, equal sports fanatic as the two of us. That's Jim Derochea. How you doing, Jim?
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Big shoes to fill, but I'll do my best.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do a great job. So Frank, wherever you are, enjoy your vacation, and we will proceed without you. But it's too bad he's not here, because I don't know how you would. What's the noise that comes on? But breaking news, folks. We have breaking news that no one has. ESPN, AP, UPI, as Frank would say, we have it here first, and that is that there is going to be the world premiere of. So we bring it up, we'll bring it up. It's the Deflategate documentary that we've been waiting on for a couple of years to give a definitive answer back to the NFL and to the anti-science community, called 4 Games in Fall. And fortunately for us, Jim Derochea was very instrumental in helping put that whole production together. So I want to flip it over to Jim, and Jim can give us a little more information about that whole thing and why it's happening now, Jim.
Sure. Obviously, we don't have to rehash Deflategate, but
right.
While it was going on back in 2014, early 2015, there's a documentary producer from Rhode Island who had done healthcare background for the most part. And she's done some. She's got many awards for health-related, healthcare-related documentaries. But what intrigued her as she was looking at this Deflategate scenario from afar as it started to unfold, was when Exponent got involved. One, because she's very familiar with them from her healthcare days and her documentaries, and knowing that they basically are bad science. They can turn any story any way whoever's paying for it wants it to be. So she's not a football fan. So she was looking at this very objective eyes, and right away started looking at it logically, and looking at the evidence, looking at the science, the ideal gas law, the fact that Exponent was in. And then when the report came out and the things, how they conducted their research, and she decided, this is for me, I'm gonna do a documentary on this, because this just doesn't add up. So she assembled.
Did she even do that before the punishments came down? Just out of curiosity, not to interrupt you, but just before the punishments came down with the 4 games and that he was suspended for, and the draft picks and the money?
It was after the team had lost the draft picks.
Oh, it was, okay.
Before Brady took his, ended up acquiescing and taking his suspension. But during that whole court process, she decided to undertake this. And she put together a group from NFL, and not directly the NFL, but NFL, people that work for the NFL, ex-players, sideline workers, but a lot in the science community, the media, put really an ensemble together from all different angles. And one thing to give this integrity, there was a lot of people that came at this who totally believed the Patriots cheated.
Right.
So she brought them in, but their mind had been flipped by the science, by the ideal gas law, and just by the whole process the NFL went through, and made it not about whether someone was guilty of inflating footballs or deflating footballs, but more about the power of the commissioner's office. Right. So as much as I was engaged in this, obviously through this, and very interested in it, I did see the director's cut a couple months ago, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I had high expectations anyways, but how she put this together, and some of the tidbits that came out that a lot of people had never heard before. And
so there will be a lot of new information that people are going to see when they see this.
Yes, definitely, and some interesting people that you wouldn't expect to be engaged in this or be involved in it. I think there's a
scientist from MIT in it.
Yep, Professor John Leonard. He was actually the first one who came out, and he is an Eagles fan, a devout Eagles fan, surprisingly enough. And so I have congratulations to him on his team winning. But he was the first one. He came out and in his classroom and then put out a video proving that the ideal gas law, when you consider the laws of science, the Patriots, the PSI readings were exactly in the range where you'd expect them to be. So his conclusion was there was absolutely no tampering. And other scientists and other from Carnegie Mellon, and there is various others that came out with the same conclusion. Even seventh graders were coming out with the same conclusion once they did the math and used the ideal gas law. So, but yeah, it was more, for her, it was more than, she didn't want to come at it because she's not a football fan from a Patriots fan.
Yeah, I was reading about that. I was shocked to see that.
Yeah, and it does, it obviously as a Patriots fan, where, you know, I was engaged in learning what she was doing, but at the same time, she came at it very objective from the science standpoint and from the logical standpoint. She attacked it. So we actually can roll the trailer.
Yeah, let's see
some of the folks that are in it and can talk about it.
Okay.
In the America I grew up in, that I still believe in, we loved guys like Tom Brady, a guy who came from nothing, a guy who couldn't even start for much of his career at Michigan. He's the 199th pick in the draft, and then turned himself into the greatest of all time.
A federal appeals court has ruled that New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady must serve a 4-game suspension stemming from the so-called Deflategate.
This report on Deflategate that took league investigators 103 days to produce puts Tom Brady firmly in its crosshairs.
Deflategate gets its name instantly. They caught the Patriots. Once again, the cheating Patriots. Now I hope they whack them. They're going to get their comeuppance.
New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady hit hard by the investigation into the now infamous Deflategate scandal.
Then, of course, the commissioner announced a quote-unquote independent investigation that led people to think, well, if there's some big independent investigation, maybe there's something there.
What should have been, if true, a minor equipment violation was the top story in the country. Not on the sports news, on the network newscast. It was insane.
I requested of the league and of the league's investigators that we be provided with the actual PSI information. That request was refused.
I was anxiously waiting to see the real numbers. I was like, why can't the NFL release the data? I want the data.
What that meant was that the false information was now guaranteed to be the only information that was out there to the public.
Brady isn't commenting on the report, but apparently his dad has his back, telling USA Today Sports, "I don't have any doubt about my son's integrity, not one bit," and adding, quote, "This was Framegate right from the beginning."
It's not just that the numbers are ambiguous or there might be some questions about the report. The numbers prove innocence.
And now he's going to suffer whatever consequences that they decide to inflict upon him as a result. There are really 3 possibilities here. Big fines, possible suspension of Brady, and number 3 is the possibility for the team of the loss of draft picks.
Mark Twain said, it's easier to lie to people than it is to convince them that they've been lied to.
My perspective on Deflategate is someone cheated, but it wasn't the Patriots or Tom Brady.
Wow. I love the way that ends because, you know, especially in this day and age of fake news and the way corporations can manipulate science and people debunk science all over the place. I love the way that, you know, she came at this from that standpoint, because here's not a fan, here's no one that has you know, nothing involved in it, no claim in it, and she's coming at it very objectively, and everyone that she recruits is coming at it very objectively, pretty much.
Yeah, it's and some of the folks, in case the names weren't there, but Jerry Thornton was in there, obviously a big media Boston guy.
Right.
Michael McCann, who's a sports attorney and a lead writer for Sports Illustrated, was in there. John Leonard, we saw him in there, the MIT professor who first came out with that debunking. But yeah, and there's numerous other people. This is just the tip of the iceberg of people that she has in the documentary. But this resonates loud and clear with a lot of names are familiar. Dan Goldberg, who's the Kraft attorney, is in there. He's the one who said he asked the league for the data, and I still, to this day, may not have ever got it, never received it.
Right.
And right up front, because they
don't want to show it.
Exactly. So, but Julie Marin, who's the executive producer and writer of this, like I said, she came at it from a very independent, outside looking in, which I think lends a lot of credibility to it. And if you watch the documentary, I think that comes right. It really plays out because a lot of the folks in there, they actually speak about not being Patriot fans. They want the Patriots to be guilty.
That's right.
But you know how the science and everything else, the court proceedings, and how everything was twisted, sort of the fake news, just swayed them and turned them.
Right. I mean, some people that outside of New England may never be changed by this, but if you have an open mind, it would be helpful to look at it and see, I haven't seen it, but you watch this, maybe it will put a little bit of doubt in somebody's mind that, it's not black and white.
Right.
It's gray.
Yeah.
And if you could put a little gray in someone's mind, that's good. That works for me.
Yeah, I think if anybody looks at it outside of New England with an objective eye, they will definitely take something out of this that they'll walk out at least scratching their head and going and wondering.
All right, so it's going to be playing this Sunday. It's the world premiere in New York City at the 7th Annual Winter Film Awards International Film Festival. And it's scheduled at 3:45, so if you're in New York City, go see it. You're one of the first. And then there's other screenings, which you have, I have the dates, I believe. So.
Yep, yeah, the 21st of March, they'll be at the Jane Pickens Theater in Newport, Rhode Island. The 23rd of March, which is a Friday, I believe, the Columbus Theater in Providence, which holds, I believe 600. So that'll be a big one to fill that one up with a lot of New England.
That's scheduled for 3 o'clock.
Yep. And then Sunday, the March 25th, the West Newton Cinema, which is where she held the director's cut. That's time to be announced, but the schedule, a deeper, fuller schedule will be coming out, and she's going to be premiering this around the country in select theaters. They've already submitted it to several film festivals and won 2 or 3 awards already.
I see that. Yeah, they won Impact Documentary Awards and Accolade Global Film Competition. Yeah, so.
Yeah, they won for, I think, the Holiday International. They've, she's done well. It's like I said, she's had a good reputation coming in because she's mostly done on healthcare and related things. But
how did you get to meet her? That's what I want to know. Maybe everybody else would like to know.
Yeah, it's funny. It just, I guess this is the one good thing about a Facebook ads. Something just popped up on my Facebook a couple years ago, shortly after Deflategate, the game happened, and maybe a month or two after the Super Bowl. Just from Lemon Martini Productions, which is Julie Marin, and is her production company, how they were making this Deflategate documentary. And since I was very engaged in Facebook in a couple of groups, sort of to fight
you sure were. The first defender of the wall. You started that, right?
Me and Nate King from California. He kind of found me. After I had filed a consumer complaint with the Mass Attorney General to kind of try to get the draft picks back.
That's right. We had a show with him on that, folks.
Yeah, and that was with a little insight from attorney Michael McCann of Sports Illustrated.
That's right.
So I just reached out to her and said, just to get a little more information on it. And she was looking for people that were involved in it or could lend some insight into the movie. So I had connections with Jerry Thornton and Mike McCann to begin with. So I connected them to her and a couple other folks to bring them into the fold. And they ended up playing very prominently in the documentary, which was great. I think Michael McCann was the premier writer and sports attorney covering that.
Right. He has a course on it now.
Yes.
Deflategate course he did. Yes.
Yeah, he's turned it into almost a living. He's
like an industry. Yes.
So,
Right.
but yeah, so from there, things just picked up for her. Those connections led to other connections, and she really, put together a very nice ensemble and really put the film together very nicely.
I can't wait to see it. Excellent. Well, that's it. So you have the dates, you have the times, folks. Get out there and watch this Deflategate show.
We'll try to get her on the show too. We're going to try to get Julie Marin on the show with you and Frank, if we can.
Okay, excellent. Yes. So tune in for that, folks. We'll let you know when that's going to happen.
And she'll
We'll
definitely
have Jim back too.
She'll definitely have more information on the showings.
Excellent. So we have, from segueing to that, we need to segue because we're both like huge Red Sox fans, and we've been dying to talk about the Red Sox, but we had to get into that breaking news. That was awesome. And and it's perfect time because, it's a spring day today, so it makes you feel like baseball. The smell, like Frank said last week, the smell of the grass, the crack of the bat. So having signed J.D. Martinez, which is big news on all the sports talk shows yesterday, I feel pretty good about it. There's other people that are denigrating it, but I mean, they need a big bat. And who else were they going to get if they didn't get him? I mean, they were like last in the league in home runs last year.
Yeah.
So are you happy with that pickup?
Yeah, I think he was the best on the market they could have got. Eric Hosmer was out there, but I think J.D. Martinez was the guy they targeted. They definitely need a bat in the lineup, a consistent bat.
Right.
It's one of those things where we saw with Ortiz, even in his late stages of his career, and he still went out on a very high note, but he protected the lineup around him, and that's what Martinez is going to do. He's going to allow these hitters the young hitters to be much better hitters.
Yeah. Do you think, all right, so do you think he hit in Arizona? It's a hitter's park, they say, because actually I listened to this the other day, I couldn't believe it. They think part of the reason that he hit so many home runs is because it's so dry there and the balls dry out, and they're actually going to start putting a humidor in Arizona. I listened to sports talk, so I get these things, I don't know where I picked it up from, so that these balls are moister, so they're not going to fly out at the same pace that they would. So here he is coming into Fenway Park. He's a right-handed bat. The dimensions are not, center field is way further back than it is in Chase Park. Right field and center and left is pretty much the same dimensions. Do you think he's going to be able to blast that many home runs out here?
Yeah, I don't know if he'll hit 45, but I think he'll be the power hitter. He'll be in the high 30s, maybe low 40s, I think. And what I like about him is he takes the ball to all fields. And in Fenway, you've seen some over the years, right-hand power hitters come in and just fail because they just see the green monster and they just, and they just try to turn on everything. And he's a good enough hitter. He hits as many, balls hard to the right side as he does to the left side.
He's a big guy. He's not small. He's
No.
6'3", 220. So he has the size. People were saying, the Boston media is so negative. As soon as somebody comes in here, it's like they don't give him a chance at all. Especially sports talk. I don't even want to mention who it is, but it just annoys the heck out of me. But they're not giving him a chance to produce, and it's like you have to give this guy. Because the latest thing was that he's 31 and he's too old. He's going to be old. It's like they're like Tony Maz is like not convinced that he can do it in Fenway Park, and he's still upset that they didn't get Stanton. I didn't think there was no way that Stanton was going to come to Boston. Sorry.
No.
If you had a chance to go to New York or Boston, who are you going to pick?
Yeah,
and who are you going to get more money?
Yeah, and I think the Red Sox weren't going to roll out the Brinks truck for Stanton, even though he's the best still fairly young hitter in the game. But they definitely, if they stayed pat, they had a good team. They weren't going to be as good as the Yankees. With their pitching, this definitely closes the gap.
Do you think the Yankees are still the front runners, though?
If they are, it's by a whisker. I still, when it comes down to it, if health being the big thing, if the Red Sox pitching staff stays healthy, if David Price pitches like he did last year in the playoffs, how he came back as a starter. This team has one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. Cleveland comes to mind as another one. But
Houston.
Yeah, Houston. Houston's got the best of everything.
Yeah, they're
still the team to beat in the American League, if not all of baseball. They didn't get much weaker, but it's a long season. Injuries happen.
That's right.
But the Red Sox are set up for, pitching, defense in the playoffs, and clutch hitting. Clutch hitting, it comes and goes. If your pitching and defense is there, which right now they have as a strength, that's
they just have to be hitting down the stretch.
Yeah.
And the last 2 years, that wasn't it with Farrell. I don't know if we need to blame it on Farrell, or maybe the way he was pushing people. One good thing I liked about what Cora said this year is that he's going to rest people. He's not going to make them play game after. I mean, Xander Bogaerts.
They have plenty of depth.
Betts and Bogaerts they were almost done by August. It seemed.
Plenty of depth on this team.
Yeah.
The younger guys are another year experienced.
Right.
Even the guys they have, the utility guys. Brock Holt was never the same. He never got his rhythm back after his injury last year, but he started off a ball of fire.
Right.
He's put on supposedly 20 pounds of muscle. Him and Benintendi both, they're workout buddies, but he's coming back stronger. They signed Eduardo Nunez again.
That was a nice signing, yeah.
So, I mean, between Holt, who is basically a primary backup at every position but pitcher and catcher.
That's right.
Nunez, and then the rotation even at first base with whether it's Hanley and Moreland. I mean, they've got plenty of depth. So that's a position of strength for them, keeping everybody fresh. And as you alluded to in the past, it's a long season. Injuries happen.
Right.
Guys need a rest. So there are opportunities to get guys
but
in there.
You had said something interesting before we did the show even, and I hope you're wrong, but you have a feeling or a hunch that they might end up trading even like somebody like Jackie Bradley.
Well,
what are you basing that on?
I just
we
base
didn't
it
get into
on
it too much.
Base it on my baseball logic, I guess, looking and saying, that Martinez is an outfielder, and he could be the DH. You've got Hanley and Moreland at first base / DH. Well, Moreland has an upper hand where he's a lefty compared to Hanley and Martinez, who are both right-handed hitters.
Yeah.
Hanley is not very marketable if they try to trade him. They're not going to get much for him. And maybe he might be, if they're going to try to push somebody out there in a trade, maybe they do get
Who would they try to
get
if they're going to trade who are they going to trade? Who are they going to get back? Who are they looking for back?
I would think if they were going to trade, and of all the outfielders, I think Benintendi and Mookie are the bigger locks than Bradley, just because of Bradley's inconsistency, even though his defense is phenomenal. And I'd hate to see him go. We both agree with that.
Yeah, okay.
I think of the three, he would be the logical one that could still, because his upside is so big and so high, that he could get something back, whether it's another piece in the bullpen, or a solid starter, or even to try to get back if they say, hey, this rotation's not going to work, we need something back, and get a couple of young guys that they can use either to nurture it or use at the trading deadline.
So it's a question of having enough outfield depth and trying to fill in whatever they need. Not like a trade would happen right away, though.
No, I hope it doesn't. And usually these things play themselves out in spring training. Someone has a phenomenal spring. Someone gets hurt. Yeah. Someone has a lousy spring, and they, someone you expected to,
Jackie Bradley actually carried the team at the beginning of the year, didn't he? Isn't that when he had that 23 game?
He's
right off the
definitely
bat to start the season.
He's very streaky, and he usually has a better first half than second half, as Moreland as well last year.
Yeah.
First half, he's another guy that his bat was pretty much carried the team. But with Bradley, and I said this last year, we sat here on the same time, and I expect a little more consistency out of him. I think his ups and downs were even smoother last year, but still,
yes, they were.
As a whole,
not as bad.
You look at the young guys; their seasons were down, and this goes back to the original what we talked about Martinez.
Okay.
That's because Ortiz wasn't there.
Right.
That's my belief. They didn't have that bat to protect them, and it wasn't Hanley. Hanley didn't have that kind of season last year to protect them. So without that, they could nibble and they could force these young hitters to go out of their comfort zone. I think having a guy like Martinez now is going to play into their development, because now they're going to see more pitches in front of them and even behind him, because even if he's not hitting home runs, he's hitting, getting on second base with doubles or whatever. He's going to be.
Let's hope that they don't go after the first pitch, though. That was what they've done that for 2 years in a row. They're the team that hits the most first pitch for outs.
And notoriously in the past, when they've had success, they've been one of the more, them and the Yankees both, one of the more patient teams.
That's right. When they won, they were one of the most patient teams. Do you think not having Pedroia to start the season is a negative for them, though, as a young team starting out again? Or do you think how that will work?
I think the fact that his leadership is going to be there, and I think he's recognized he needs to take a step up. Defensively, obviously, I think they take a step back.
Yeah.
But I think that they have enough depth that they can overcome that. But I think, again, him hitting the way he can when he comes back, so you're looking May, June, getting into, he's a huge leader, an offensive threat.
He's a force.
In the lineup.
He's still a force in the lineup.
He is.
So we don't have much time left, but do you think, how do you think Cora is going to make a big difference with the team as manager, if you could say it briefly?
Yeah, I think Cora is a guy who understands players. I think he's a motivator. Whereas Farrell was not a coddler. You don't have to be a coddler with millionaires, but it's a very young team still. Some of those guys, sometimes that's what they need. They need the arm around the shoulder and, hey, it's going to be all right. Tomorrow's
and they
another
didn't
day.
have Ortiz to do that last
No.
year. They had him the previous year. Maybe Farrell relied on Ortiz too much for doing that.
Yeah, I think Ortiz was that guy. And
he was. Yeah.
I also think that Cora is a tactician. His mind is, as a player, he was known for being very cerebral, and I think he brings that to the managers. And players pick up on that, and they become smarter. I just think by proxy, being around that, knowing that, he's thinking 2 steps ahead, and it keeps them thinking ahead just along with him.
I think you're right. My God, I can't believe we're almost out of time. This show flew. Jim, thanks so much for being on, man.
Great being here.
We'll have you again on real soon.
Frank, you can go away anytime.
Yeah, Frank, I hope you're having a great vacation. As I said, we want to thank Roxanne Morris for doing a great job in the booth. As Frank said, making us look good, and I won't say pretty. So until next week, I am Mike Wigdor.
And I'm Jim Derochea.
And we will see you
down the road.